So the year 2009 here can mean a lot for people that want to avail themselves of that opportunity. You get in certain circles, they'll talk about how at this point in time there's certain enlightenment available that wasn't there before. Now, I personally don't believe that. There's nothing available today that wasn't available in the past. The only thing that happens is that within each of us, something happens and we become open to hear it. Now, obviously, there were some people out there that Jesus as a person, as an individual, could not reach because he was one person or one individual, and he couldn't be everywhere. So he sent 12 out. But he was careful to admonish them that if, what they had to say wasn't accepted, then leave it. Leave it behind. And the last words there, having to do with kicking the dust or the sand off of your sandals, is he was saying, and don't bring back anything of what they have to say with you. Don't bring that nonsense into your own household. You know and understand what the truth is, as he was telling them. And because others may not believe it, or may consider you something other than what you are, you don't need to accept that. You don't need to take that with you. It doesn't have to be part of your own life. It was one of her famous sayings, Reverend Hilda Blanchard. I know there's those here that never met her, but it was one of her favorite sayings, is to kick the dust off your sandals. Anytime there was a situation, and she carried it on into the very present, to individuals. There was a situation of conflict with another individual that seemingly couldn't be resolved, and she was saying, kick the dust off your sandals, just let it go. Because as you let it go, there are more things for you to work on. As you carry things with you and you want to mold or manipulate things according to the form that you choose is best, you do no favors to anyone. So it's for us to let it go. In this year of 2009, we're going to experience change. That's the one thing that we know takes place year in and year out, day in and day out, is change. And what's important to all of us is that we embrace change. Without change, we cannot possibly grow. Unless we let go of the things of the past and let them behind us, we cannot possibly grow. This isn't, we can't put things in a bottle and preserve them. We're a living, moving, expanding, growing entity, each one of us. And as such, we must continue to have that in the forefront of our mentalities, is that we are expanding and growing. And while there's many things that we would like to hang on to, it's for us to let them go so that we can grow. I remember, it's back a few years, but, this area that we're sitting in was a storage area, and we stored a lot of things in here. And in order to get to this point, we had to move that stuff out of here. In order to get this space where we could worship, we had to take all of that, I hate to use the word garbage, but okay, all that garbage that we had in here, and we still preserved some of it, but we threw a lot of it out. It had to go so that this space could be opened up, so that there could be growth here within our group and within our organization. It's the same for each of us, within our mentalities, within our emotions, within our physical beings. We've accumulated a lot of things that we don't need. And change, in order to take place effectively, contemplates the elimination of all of those things that we no longer need. And there's a lot of things we like to hold on to because they're pretty or whatever. or we consider them that they might be useful someday. I know it was my neighbor here who was kind enough to enter into an arrangement with us so that we could have this place. He's famous for keeping a lot of things. In fact, he's stored so many things in so many places he can't figure out where he's got them stored. He just knows that he's got them somewhere. And he frequently goes through the process of he gives up looking for it and goes and buys it, and then of course the next day the old one appears because he went and bought what he needed to get the job done, and then since he no longer has to hunt for it, he finds it. So it's a constant process with him, but he just doesn't know how to let it go, and he doesn't know how to give up his storage. So his garages are full, his homes are full, and it continues on. We cannot allow ourselves to become like the garages and become full. We constantly have to have within us some spot, some room for growth. And we have to understand that we have an expanding nature. And as we expand and grow, we do not want to put in that expanding part of our being those things that we've tried and we know that are useless just because we like them or we desire them or we want them or they're pretty. We can't take over a new space with the old stuff. We have to let it go. So as we go on in our scripture here, there was one thing in a particular note in the scripture that I had never noticed before, and I'm finding that happening a lot these days. As I reread something or go over something, I see something new there that I hadn't seen before, even though I've read it many times. And it's always the question to me as to why that takes place. And I believe the answer is because now I'm at a point that I can actually see it. And beforehand, I had a preconceived notion of what it was about. And so since I had a preconceived notion of what the story was about, I missed certain parts of the story that either would confuse me or I didn't want to look at. And one of the things that I'm referring to at the moment is I never saw in the story there when they were up on the mountain and the transfiguration was going on that a couple of the disciples were asleep. I never saw that before. I always had the concept or the idea that they were there and they witnessed this transfiguration, but that's not what took place at all. They were up there, and it's much like the Garden of Gethsemane. They got tired of waiting and they took a nap. Yeah, nodded off and woke up in the middle of it. Now, you know, that happens to us a lot in life as we go in somewhere and we have a preconceived notion of a situation, and then events unfold, and lo and behold, they unfold in a manner that we perhaps didn't think about or envision before we went there, and we wake up to a whole new dimension of things. And then it's a question of how we assimilate that into our being. Now, you know, Peter wanted to build some little shrines or temples there.